And so this conversation is going to be, if anybody knows me, I am a little like, I can be a little all over the place. But so you have been doing carnivore for how many years now?
So right now I've been doing it straight for 6 years, but I started it originally 23 years ago, when I was 20 years old. So I'm 43 now. And
So,
when
I
I was
mean,
20,
I have to say that you look
yeah,
remarkably good for a dead guy, because obviously
yeah,
you have to have died
yeah,
by now. And yet,
yeah. Well, it's been a struggle with all my obesity and rampant heart disease and gout
yes,
and
yeah.
diabetes, but I'm muddling along,
And,
and
the article
yeah,
that I mean, I don't know. I kind of shared it with you, and I don't know if you saw it, but they
mm,
posted in the Boston Herald for the four people that read newspapers anymore about how a
yeah,
study just came out that if you eat more red meat, it leads to type 2 diabetes.
yeah. And yet
Um,
you put people pure red meat and water diet and their diabetes goes away and they come
yeah,
off insulin, come off all their medications and their HbA1c comes down, their insulin comes down, and all of their biomarkers improve, their weight improves, their health improves, everything improves. And so it doesn't matter how brilliant your theory is, and it doesn't matter how smart you are. If it doesn't agree with experiment or reality, it's wrong.
right.
And so if it's against the observable facts, it's wrong. And so these studies are fraught with problems. They're
Well,
epidemiological
yeah,
studies. You're just,
they're
uh,
epidemiological studies. They're asking them questions every 2 to 4 years. So, what did you eat the past 2 years? And I was like,
yeah, exactly.
in my video, I'm like, I can't even remember what I ate last week.
Hmm.
And then
Well,
you,
it's easy for me because it's always just meat.
right,
But
right. It's
so
like,
if someone asks me what I've been eating for the last 2 years, fairly easy, it's just
yeah,
meat.
yeah,
But no diabetes. My insulin's nice and low, and
yeah.
so is my blood sugar and HbA1c. So it's against the observable facts,
Hmm.
and it's wrong. I mean, epidemiology is just bad in general, but this was particularly bad. And a lot of these are, they're called confounding factors. They're things that get in the way of the truth.
Yep.
And one of the confounding factors was they considered eating meat or eating red meat, if you said you ate lasagna or sandwiches.
Or pepperoni pizza or,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
or hamburgers and things like that at McDonald's. So the thing is that things that contain meat or red meat, they just lump in with meat, even though there's many other ingredients in there. So these
mhm.
aren't people eating just whole steaks and brisket and things like that without the sauce. These are people that are eating a mixed diet with a whole bunch of other things in it, and they're blaming the meat for that, which is frankly absurd.
It's like how many people go and get a hamburger and don't get French fries?
Yeah.
And a
Or
third,
but
and a
also the
third
hamburger
people,
has a bun
yeah,
and it's got, maybe cooked in seed oils,
yep,
and it's got mayonnaise that's made out of seed oils, and it's got ketchup with a bunch of sugar in it and a whole bunch of other ingredients. If you This is something that I saw the other day, or maybe the other week or month, but someone put up like the differences in the ingredients between ketchup in America and ketchup basically anywhere else in the world. This was in particular, this was in Canada. In America, there's like 30 some ingredients, however many, a lot. And in the Canadian version, it was five. It was like tomatoes, sugar, vinegar, a couple other things, but they were like actual ingredients, that you'd find in a pantry as opposed to, a chemistry experiment.
hmm,
And the American version was just the chemistry experiment. And so, when you're eating that sort of stuff, I mean, what do we think that's going to do to us? We have a biological design. We have chemicals that were adapted and designed to intake and digest and process. And then we have a lot of these chemicals that have never been in our food system before. Forget, whether we're carnivores, herbivores, omnivores, or whatever. These are chemicals that are being added that have just simply never existed in our food systems before, just ever. They're new. Seed oils are new. These are less than 100 years old. Canola oil is, I think, They invented that like in the 50s or something. They were using cottonseed oil in the late 1800s. That was the earliest. There wasn't anything else before that, and certainly nothing that they were using in food. And now we're adding all these things that are very new in our biological history, and we're deciding somehow that this is okay and this is good for us and this is better than eating our natural diet of the past several million years. I don't think that that is cogent at all. It doesn't make any sense if you have studied and understood biology to any degree.
I was just watching an episode of the Mind Pump show. It does make sense when you consider that you cannot patent a hamburger patty, but you can patent Impossible Burger.
Yep, that's true too.
Herein,
Yeah.
herein lies the thing. Why are they pushing veggies, veggies, veggies? Is because they can make the products and patent them.
And there's a huge profit margin as well.
Yeah.
It's a much larger profit margin on processed foods than whole foods, even whole fruits and vegetables. Much more money in the processed garbage. It makes a lot more money for a lot more people. The producers of beef, for instance, make next to nothing. They're like, oh, big beef. What big beef are you talking about?
It's like
This is
5 or 10%, maybe, right?
well, it's a conglomeration. I mean, the people that produce cattle are a conglomeration of independent farmers and ranchers. There's some larger farms, most of them are smaller farms, and it all sort of goes up into a system. There are big meat packing companies, like Tyson, things like that. And what are the other one out of Brazil is a monster. Now those suckers are pretty tyrannical, just like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and all the others. But that's not the meat producers. There was I was speaking to a rancher about this up in Canada, and she was saying that there was economic survey and study of this, and they looked at all the hours that ranchers would work on average and how much they got paid for their work, and they calculated that on average ranchers get paid about 43 cents an hour,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
For all of their work, and a lot of them make less than that because my friend Maggie, who has a ranch, has been carnivore, only eating meat literally her whole life. She's 82 now, and she's running and skipping around like she's 30. Literally, I saw her hop over very rapidly over a 5 foot tall fence to jump into a corral and rain down an actual raging bull. This thing was a monster. Like I wasn't getting in there. And she just got in there with just no hesitation, like growl it, come on, let's go, and just got. Now she birthed him and has known him forever.
Right.
So, she has that relationship with him.
Right.
But it was so impressive to see her do that so quickly at 82 years old. It was as quicker than I could do it, literally. And I've seen her climb up, big tall stacks of hay and climb up and down farm equipment, climb up a mast to grab the rope and bring it down quick as you like. I mean, just absolutely crazy, just eating meat her whole life. So, diabetes, she's not on any medications, anything like that. And
Obviously, we know that's not possible. She has to be a hologram.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, she works a crazy amount. She's up at 5 a.m. every day out with the cows, 5 a.m. every day. And they lose money because they're being driven out. They're making everything, the land more expensive, the taxes more expensive, the costs more expensive, hay is more expensive. Everything's getting more and more and more and more expensive, and they're just driving everyone out. And so they have to sell off more land and more land and more land. And so the ranchers are dwindling. She was telling me that a year or two ago, Canada lost fully 1/3 of their cattle ranchers. So that's a big loss very quickly. 1/3 of the entire herd population in Canada is gone now in the span of 1 year. So that's pretty bad. And she's losing money. These other ranchers are losing money. Some are doing well, but on average 42, 43 cents an hour. And she'd be on the other side of that. So she is losing money. So she's paying out of her retirement savings and retirement funds to operate her ranch. So she's paying for the privilege of working 14 hours starting at 5 a.m. Pretty crazy. So people say, oh, well, big beef isn't what big beef. There's no big beef. It's big packing plants.
Right.
But people that produce beef are a little guy. and they're getting screwed.
Meanwhile, as Dr. John Jaquish says, it's like the profit margin on a Triscuit's like 600%.
Yeah,
Something ridiculous.
massive. Yeah.
One of the things that does come up a lot, and I know you've heard it, and I know you've dealt with this before, but that you need to eat fiber because fiber feeds your gut microbiome. Now, you don't eat any, and you seem pretty healthy to me.
Yeah.
So, how would you address that argument? Is you need to have fiber for your gut microbiome?
Well, I mean, and what's the evidence for this? Where are they bringing this from? Generally, it's because they say, well, you need butyrate for your enterocytes. Well, there's other sources of butyrate that can feed your enterocytes. First of all, if you're in a state of ketosis and you're making ketones, one of the main ketone bodies is this nature, and that feeds your enterocytes parenterally through your circulation. And there are other things in your food that can break down and turn into that as well. It doesn't have to be from fiber. So that's out. And you don't even need to go that far. You don't need to get down into the nitty gritty. Sometimes we lose track of the forest for the trees and we're looking, oh, but this little thing, you need this chemical. And oh my God. Okay, well, why do the Inuit exist then? What fiber is available at the North Pole? And so if you need fiber, well, then they don't exist.
Right.
If you need fiber for an optimal microbiome, so you can be optimally healthy, okay, but you can still live with a suboptimal one, fine, okay. But if it's required essential, you have to have it. It's an essential nutrient, which fiber is now classified as an essential nutrient, meaning you will die without it. That doesn't explain why the Inuit exists. That doesn't explain how we got through all the ice ages. But if you're looking at optimal microbiomes, why is it that the Inuit in several studies, when eating their natural diet, because there are other studies that look at the Inuit when they're not eating their natural diet, or it's a mix of the two, and then they're like, well, they're having the same disease as everyone else. So obviously that Inuit diet is stupid. Like, well, no, you're stupid because you're looking at a study that doesn't measure the Inuit diet. You're looking at the Inuit population who are eating mixed, or you're intentionally being dishonest and you're trying to mislead people by doing that. And that happens a lot. I see that a lot. So the Inuit have some of the healthiest microbiomes that have ever been studied when eating just a carnivore diet, just meat and water only. And
Now,
not
could it be, and I just thought of this, so tell me that I'm totally whacked, but could it be possibly that, yes, you do need fiber if you're eating carbohydrates because it blunts the blood sugar effect. So yeah, if you're eating carbohydrates, then yeah, you need fiber. But if you're just eating meat, is that a possibility?
Well, it depends. It depends on your end goal. If you want to reduce absorption of carbohydrates, then yes, that is useful. I still don't think you need them. I don't think you have to have carbohydrates.
I'm not.
So the thing is though, is you're actually onto something, because there are studies that look at the quote unquote benefits of fiber, and there are many that they quote, but this is in comparison to people eating garbage, right? So it can be healthy user bias, or they have ones that they give you a fiber supplement tablet and they say, wow, this improves things. Now, some of these are not improving much at all. So some of these things, there are some meta-analyses that go around saying, wow, we found that this really helps with blood pressure or other sorts of things. And this is coming from a conversation I had with different people at various times, where they said, well, what about these meta-analyses? This shows that fiber is really, really good for you. It's like, okay, well, this is saying that there's a trend that fiber can benefit blood pressure and different sorts of things like that. Okay, that's fine. You look at the individual studies that they use in these meta-analyses, which I did. I didn't go through all of them. It was like 30. I just randomly selected a handful and just took a look. Everyone I saw, it was very marginal at best improvement. So there was like blood pressure on average blood pressure was whatever it was, and then people in the fiber group had a drop on average of 1.5 points, right? So this is going from, to make up some numbers, 155 down to 153.5. So not a dramatic drop in the blood pressure. It's not like this cured hypertension or anything like that. It was not significant, really, in that. And it was not a significant amount. May have been statistically significant, but it wasn't a significant amount that you would go right home and say like, oh my God, this is, if you had a medication that did only that, like sorry, you're not going to be able to sell that. It's not going to do much for you. But so there's things like that. And so there's a lot of these things that say, well, there's this benefit, but how big is the benefit? How good is the benefit? Sometimes it's very marginal at best. And then, yes, there are studies that say, well, eating fiber can help stabilize your blood sugar. So this is really good for diabetics. But it's exactly from that, because how does fiber work? It doesn't get absorbed into your body. It's not doing anything. It has to work in the gut.
Yep.
And so when you have a combination of soluble and insoluble fiber, as you would find in a plant that you eat, that it sort of forms this lattice work and this sort of basically a barrier, like a physical barrier, between the digestive enzymes that your body produces. And so that doesn't necessarily get to the food. So it can't break it down properly, but also it forms a barrier between the broken down digested food and the lumen of your intestines. So it can't get to the border cells to then be taken up and absorbed. So there's different estimates. I've heard from, say, Dr. Robert Lustig from UCSF, who wrote several books on these different subjects. One called Metabolical, where the percentage he quoted was 30%. It reduced the absorption by 30%. But that's going to reduce the absorption of everything by 30%. So if you're eating a whole bunch of high octane garbage and it reduces by 30%, I'd say that's a benefit.
Right.
I don't think it's essential in the sense that you'll die without it.
Right.
But it's a benefit from that point of view. And it's certainly it can reduce your absorption of carbohydrates up to 30%, say. And yeah, that's going to stabilize your blood sugar. However, there are other studies showing that there's one that I believe it was Zoe Harcum who did a talk, and she mentioned a study that had over 2,000 people, and they followed these people for however long, and they found they had a fiber group and a non-fiber group, a high fiber group and a lower fiber group, and they found that in the higher fiber group, they had a significantly higher risk of cardiac death, cardiovascular death. So they were like dying more often of heart attacks and strokes.
The high
so
fiber.
Go here. Okay.
Excellent.
Do we want to slightly reduce the amount of garbage that we're eating, or just not eat garbage in the first place? Or do we want to not die of a heart attack or a stroke? I mean, I think we'll go for the latter. So fiber is, I think, problematic, to say the least, in saying that it's a benefit, because what is it benefiting? You have to think about how it's being used and what is your end goal. The benefits are pretty tenuous, and compared to people eating a low fiber diet, which is it's either a carnivore diet or a highly processed food diet. Well, how many people are really doing a carnivore diet? Is that what we're comparing this to?
Right.
Is the average American eating a carnivore diet, and that's why they're eating a low fiber diet, or they're eating a highly processed food diet, and that's why they're eating a low fiber diet? And you go to a whole food diet and you start worrying about your health more, and you have a healthy user bias, and you start working out. Is your health going to improve? So, comparing this to, or the interventions where you give someone a fiber supplement and it improves your blood pressure by 1.5 points. Okay. Yes, there's an improvement, but compared to what?
Compared to what? Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, any economist will always say, compared to what? Compared to what? Well, compared to people that are sick and eating garbage. Okay. So adding some fiber in, sick and eating garbage is a little better. Fine. I'm happy with that. That doesn't mean that you have to have it. It doesn't mean that it's a benefit when you're not eating garbage, when you're eating good things that are good for you, and you don't want to cut out 30% of what you're eating. You want to absorb every ounce of the steak that you ate.
Of course, if one wants to be pessimistic, one could say that perhaps the reason that you got to eat a high fiber diet is, this is going to be really pessimistic, is because that's being pushed by a group of people that want you to keep eating their junk. By eating a high fiber diet, you will be able to do it longer before you die. If that makes sense.
Maybe. I don't even know if they care that much. Because the thing is that they're profiting off the medications as well, and so they're invested both ways. companies and the pharmaceutical companies, they are not unaware of fits that they have to each other's industries.